A ceasefire that was supposed to bring down the temperature has instead become the biggest flashpoint of the Iran-US conflict. And now Tehran has a new accusation. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi is blaming Israel for sabotaging diplomacy with Washington, saying Israel has been the biggest obstacle to a lasting ceasefire between Iran and the United States. But here is where this story gets even more complicated. Because while Iran accuses Israel of destroying the path to peace, reports suggest Tehran itself used the period of relative calm to prepare for what could be an even bigger war. So was the ceasefire actually a path to peace, or was it simply a pause before the next explosion? Araghchi has now openly accused Israel of trying to kill the US-Iran agreement before it could be implemented. He says the Zionist regime was and remains the biggest opponent of the understanding between Tehran and Washington. According to Iran's foreign minister, Israel made every possible effort to prevent the agreement from being reached, to make it fail, and ultimately to stop it from being implemented. And Araghchi went even further. He claimed that the United States initially demanded Iran's unconditional surrender, but that this demand ultimately failed. According to his version of events, Iran refused to surrender, continued fighting, and eventually forced Washington into negotiations on Tehran's terms. But that is only one side of this story. Because behind the diplomatic language, Iran appears to have been preparing for the possibility that diplomacy could collapse. A Wall Street Journal report says Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps used the ceasefire period to strengthen its military capabilities and prepare options for a wider confrontation with the United States. The IRGC itself has acknowledged that it used the lull to accelerate missile production and improve missile accuracy. In other words, while diplomats were talking about peace, Iran was preparing for war. And the reported preparations go much further. Iran is said to have expanded counterintelligence operations, coordinated strategy with allied armed groups across the region, and increased the role of the powerful Revolutionary Guard in the country's military structure. Iranian officials have also reportedly discussed options including preemptive strikes, attacks on strategic targets, sabotage of undersea internet cables in the Persian Gulf, and even potential ground operations in countries hosting American military bases. These reports are significant because they suggest Tehran never viewed the ceasefire simply as the beginning of a permanent peace process. Iranian hardliners reportedly feared that the agreement could give the United States and Israel breathing room, allowing global economic pressure to ease while preparations for another attack were made. And that fear has now collided head-on with the diplomatic crisis. The original understanding between Tehran and Washington was reached in June, with Pakistan playing a key mediating role. The objective was to end hostilities, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, and move towards broader negotiations. But the arrangement quickly began falling apart. Washington later declared the ceasefire effectively over, while Tehran accused the United States of violating the understanding. Today, the Strait of Hormuz remains at the heart of the confrontation. Iran insists it has the ability to control passage through the waterway. The United States, meanwhile, has challenged that claim and imposed a naval blockade around Iranian ports. And this is why this conflict is no longer just about Iran, Israel, or the United States. Hormuz is one of the world's most important energy choke points. Any prolonged disruption threatens oil and gas shipments from the Gulf, impacts shipping costs, rattles energy markets, and ultimately risks hitting economies and consumers far beyond the Middle East. And remember how this entire crisis began. On February 28th, the United States and Israel launched their major strikes against Iran. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was killed in the opening assault. Tehran retaliated with missile and drone strikes against Israel and American positions across the region, while Iran shut down the Strait of Hormuz. What followed was a conflict that quickly became much bigger than the original battlefield. And now, months later, there is still no durable peace. Instead, there are competing narratives. Iran says Israel sabotaged diplomacy. Washington says Tehran failed to honor the understanding. Israel remains deeply concerned about Iran's military and strategic capabilities, and Iran's Revolutionary Guard appears to be preparing for the possibility that the next phase will not be diplomatic at all. That leaves the world staring at a dangerous question. If the ceasefire was supposed to be the bridge to peace, why does every side appear to be preparing for the next war? Because in the Iran-US crisis, the guns may have fallen silent at moments, but the war plans never did. And with the Strait of Hormuz still caught in the middle, the next breakdown in diplomacy could have consequences far beyond Tehran, Washington, and Tel Aviv.